All right, welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday, November 14, 2023, the council meeting of the Council for Minnesotans of African Heritage, and the time is 6:05 actually. The meeting is now called to order, and we'll proceed with the agenda. The first item is roll call. See my staff.
Yes, give me one moment here. Oop, okay, let's see. Alrighty, so first and foremost, Chair Doe.
Present.
Awesome. Vice Chair Crawford.
Present.
Awesome. Treasurer Mullins.
Present.
Awesome. Secretary Adams-Lee. Oh, right, she's not here. She's been excused.
Yes.
Councilmember Daniels. Okay. Councilmember Nadi.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Winston. Councilmember Dukes. Councilmember Dahir.
Present.
Awesome. Senator Fate. Representative Hudson.
Present.
Awesome. And then Representative Frazier. Okay, that concludes roll call.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'm assuming everybody had a chance to take a look at the agenda. If there's any questions, if none, I will call for a motion to adopt the agenda as it is. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Crawford.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Mullins.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, just making you by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right. Oppose? Abstain? Okay. All right, so the motion is carried. And the next item here is the adoption of our last meeting minutes. If you had a chance to look at it, that's great. If not, you can just look at it in a few seconds here. If you want to just gloss through it, if anything pops up, identify anything there. So I'm just giving you a few moments to look at that. Okay. If no questions or comments or changes, I'll also call for a motion to adopt the agenda, the minutes, October council full meeting minutes. Can I get a motion?
Crawford.
All right.
So moved, Crawford.
Is there a second?
Second, Mullins.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Any discussions, questions, further comments? All right. If none, all those in favor, make a note by saying aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, so it's carried. The minutes will form part of our archives. Before we go to the financial report, though, I just want to just take a moment here just to welcome everybody. Again, it's been just about a month now since we met, and I do see that we have more than usual as attending the meeting, which is good. So welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. We always appreciate that because your being here means that we will have a great meeting, and your participation and helping to move this council forward is very important to us. So thank you for being here. With that being said, I'll turn this time over to Treasurer Mullins to give us a financial update report.
Thank you. Let me know when you all can see my screen, please.
Sure.
I can see it.
Thank you. So as you all can see, we are currently sitting at 64,000 of our total budget for this fiscal year, which is good. I feel like we usually have a lot more unobligated around this time, and we're usually trying to scramble to figure out where monies are going. I looked through the financials and I have no concerns or questions for CMAH staff. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Okay, it doesn't sound like there's a question.
It's a quiet
Yeah,
night tonight. Okay, well.
no, but it looks good. I think we're doing pretty good
We're
with our
doing
financial.
good. Yeah, we're doing
Yeah.
really good.
Really good. That's great to know. There we are. Thank you very much, Treasurer Mullins, for that report. Again, we don't need a vote on the financials because these are numbers that updates all the time. So we just kind of get updates and then move along. If anything comes out that we need to talk about, then we talk about it at that point. Do we have any public comment today? No one signed up for comments? It doesn't seem so. Okay. I'll take this time to turn over to our legislative director, who would do a presentation on our priorities. And this is also very important. And we decided to have this time so we can get more understanding, insight into what's before us. So, Mr. Rose, and I
Yes.
believe Linda is also on that. So the floor is now yours.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Doe. Good evening, council members. I first need to apologize. I'm not going to be on camera. It usually helps out anyway with regards to the connection issues that that I fall prey to. But I will share screen now and we'll get going here. All right. Okay, so we're doing hopefully we have some time for some good discussion as well. So Linda and I will be presenting on some working ideas around our priorities for 2024. I will provide some background before sketching some ideas and initiatives related to the priorities. So the first step, I mean, in terms of background, we have a system of legislative biennium system with our our state legislature. 2023 was a historic budget year, as all of you know. In terms of the 2-year biennium, it'll be 2023 and 2024. In the even number year, or in 2024, we'll have opportunities for investments and interventions on infrastructure, policy focus, and also potentially a supplemental budget. And as of right now, based on the economic reports out of MMB, we potentially would have a 2.4 billion surplus for the 2024 legislature to work with. We'll have a better sense of that. That's a very tentative number. I mean, we'll get more official in terms of that number, that figure, at the end of November when we have the November forecast, November economic forecast, and then even more concrete when we at the end of February when we get the February forecast. Background number two, in terms of CMAH's 2023 priorities, just to set the stage and what we've been working on in our correspondences and meetings with legislators and with the Walz administration, we really focused on these four areas here. Equitable funding, the key was to really elevate community concerns about the funding decisions and the outcomes of those decisions, and the emphasis that that these decisions and outcomes should advance equity and address the unique challenges facing Black communities in the state. Economic security, our focus there was to track, we tracked and we supported calls for increased investments in the economic capabilities of Black businesses, Black communities, organizations, and working families. And so different provisions around there. Education equity, advocating for proposals that seek to close the structural opportunity gaps within our education system. I mean, the sort of rigid racial inequalities of our system that are related to resource matters in particular, cultural, economic, or otherwise. And then in public safety, public health, we supported efforts to reduce racial disparities in health outcomes and also to increase civil rights and cultural representation in our public safety institutions. So moving forward here, our goal is to really continue community-led change through legislative and regulatory policy developments to really continue our support for community-led initiatives. And I want to really flag that distinction between legislative and regulatory policy developments, excuse me. By legislative, I mean the state lawmaking process, specifically the legislative branch of our government. And by regulatory, I mean policy making or program development that occur in state administration or in the executive branch. So we want to really, our council is situated to do work in both of these domains. And public policy implementation or the regulatory domain is particularly important because of the vast scale of legislative provisions that were passed in 2023. And in our previous, in some of the council meetings, we've been really touching on this issue, the importance of how we monitor and how we engage with policy implementation and public finance and implementation. Another thing we want to flag is this process role issue. We want to flag that there are three main process categories for our work in public policy priorities. For the highest priorities, we play a lead role. So for example, in the African American Family Preservation Act, for other priorities, we serve as partners or as supporters in a supportive role. And Linda, we can speak more on this and we can have more Q&A around this as well. All right, so just going now, sketching some of the ideas and initiatives around our priorities for economic power, inclusive economic growth proposals. A lot of discussion ongoing at this time. I mean, I think either yesterday or last week, there was a informational House committee hearing where child care subsidies was really the main topic, and the issue of really addressing the jobs and worker shortage issue in Minnesota by reducing costs of childcare, by really trying to find ways to bring costs down, to really enable as a means of enable economic empowerment. Another area, another specific proposal that we are tracking and looking forward to actually getting repassed is a legislation to establish rights and protections of drivers who work for transportation network companies. And this bill, led by Senator Fateh and Representative Hassan in the House, actually moved forward last year. We're focused on this bill because a chunk of our own constituency in the African heritage community were really the lead movers, lead agents around the movement of this legislation in 2023. It was passed by the House and the Senate, but the governor vetoed it with the promise that it would need to be reworked, or some additional work needed to be done, and with the promise that it will be passed in 2024. The second tier there is on the regulatory side, support racial equity and inclusion in the budget implementation. So I just flagged there 3 key provisions within the jobs labor budget: the LEAP program that is administered by the Labor Department, the Promise Act, and the targeted workforce grants administered by DEED. These measures and others as well, but these in particular are very directly focused on addressing the impacts of structural racism in our communities, and how we improve economic capabilities within historically marginalized communities. For education equity, I wanted to flag 3 proposals in particular. At the top there, the legislative literacy education proposal. This measure actually was passed in 2023, but the coalition that we partner with in this proposal is really looking to really how we advance and the sort of next steps in the provision. Black communities are disproportionately impacted by economic we know this stuff, right? By economic hardship, financial debt, inadequate access to credit resources, to finance capital, and really the work that we are hoping from a proposal like this is to, how we make financial literacy education culturally sensitive to the needs of historically marginalized students and families. The Increased Uses of Color Act has been a key priority in partnership with our other ethnic councils and the broader nonpartisan, bipartisan statewide coalition. 3 sort of prospects for next steps in ITCA would be the Aspiring Teachers of Color program. There's some provisions there that there's a proposal by the Office of Higher Education on next steps there for 2024. We had a conversation with MDE about expanding the Grow Your Own grants in the K-12 system, and that's really being pushed by the communities and the school districts themselves. And then also we've been having conversations about some policy change that is supported, in a bipartisan manner in the legislature. Really how we sort of do some shifts around the last in, first out policy within the education workforce hiring practices. And then the other areas there in terms of regulatory support is really to monitor and support measures that advance full equitable participation in early learning. two measures there, the two-part measures, I should say, is the investments in non-exclusionary discipline and also limitations on K through third grade dismissal, being two cornerstones of a proposal that we're very happy that passed and was included in the 2023 education budget, that to really advance full participation in early learning, and to keep young people, particularly young children of color, young Black children, young Black students attached to high quality education or learning environments. And then also to monitor and support equity and inclusion in implementation of the historic education budget. I mean, there's funding, and really we were talking with MDE about this today, even funding provisions related to after-school programs, ethnic studies, full service community schools, reading literacy, and other really major provisions around, you know, student support services and personnel support, personnel improvements, mental health, and such. And so to really work and partner with MDE and with community on how we ensure that the implementation of this budget is equitable and inclusive. And health justice, really to move forward with some building partnership with MDH, or continuing partnership with MDH around policy implementation to address racial disparities in infant and maternal health outcomes. Part of the health budget that passed in 2023 included provisions to establish an Office of African American Health, an African American Health State Advisory Council, and grants related to health equity. The key here is really to engage with MDH, with the Minnesota Department of Health, in the implementation and the next steps in this area to ensure that we've passed legislation, but at the regulatory side, that we are effective, and that we're really attached to the community needs and the spirit of these types of proposals as they have moved through the lawmaking process. Another area here is to track efforts to improve access to affordable healthcare and investments in substance use disorder prevention. There are provisions to do research and analysis around how we improve access to or cost reductions in healthcare, improve healthcare affordability, steps for proposals, doing analysis on the benefits and costs of proposals to universalize our healthcare system in Minnesota. And also, there was some major funding around drug overdose prevention. I believe that act right there received $50 million in the health budget. So we want to continue to monitor and find ways to support the implementation of these provisions. And on public safety and pro-democracy, the emphasis here is to support efforts to expand voter access and voting rights. So the partner with the Pro-Democracy Coalition on measures to expand voting rights for historically underrepresented communities, and also to support statewide voter access and education initiatives. Some of this stuff is their community partners who are in the lead on some of this, and we are in engagement with the Secretary of State around how we expand, or how we would do the work of really implementing some of the provisions that the pro-democracy provisions that were passed in the May 2023 package. And furthermore, to track and support measures to improve civil rights and cultural representation in public safety. The public safety budget that passed in 2023 included 70 million for community crime and violence prevention. The provision around the Office for Missing and Murdered Black Women and Girls was passed. And we continue. We have council representation. I believe Vice Chair Crawford is our representative on the Community Council of the Post Board, which is the board that oversees and governs the education and licensing of peace officers in our state. So we continue those engagements in 2024. And finally, here in the Strong Families and Community section, the key focus, last but not least, is family preservation, the African American Family Preservation Act. I've been providing updates in our work on this initiative in this policy area. I'll just touch on here that and say in terms of thinking about the prospects for how this bill gets passed in 2024. Just thinking about the problem solution model, we have the problem of abuse or failure. I mean, so an inability of the child welfare system to prevent abuse, to remove children from abusive settings, and to provide adequate support for families who want to do right by their children. There was this month, actually, on November 3rd, the Star Tribune published a major expose on precisely this issue. And I think moving forward here, the sense that we want to push in community and in state government is that the objectives and provisions of the African American Family Preservation Act should be part of the public policy and finance package that Minnesota passes to improve the child welfare system in 2024. I highlighted here there's tons of research around this stuff. I highlighted some research that certainly pertains to what would be, particularly if I would urge everybody to take a look at that Star Tribune expose from November 3rd, because I have a sense that the legislature will have to respond to the issues raised in that article. But in terms of just the broader research here, we have research that shows that cash transfers and really economic support to poor families improves education, health, nutrition, and long-term economic status of children. Right? There's a direct link between providing direct economic support and the kind of education attainment and the nutritional status and even the long-term income or economic status of children. There's research that shows that economic support to low-income households decreases referrals, investigations, foster care placements within the child protection system. And in a related issue, the U.S. Census released data, this fall, early in the fall or late summer, that shows that child poverty doubled when pandemic era federal aid programs expired in 2022. So there's a lot of research to show that we, really finding ways to provide adequate cultural and economic support to families is really crucial, and really, support that is specific to the needs, to the unique experiences of families and communities is really crucial to improving child protection. So I will leave it there, and we can have some discussion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Theo, for that presentation. Linda, are you going to add to it, or we just open the floor for questions?
We do have a rough Excel spreadsheet as to how we've identified the issues and put them in those categories of whether or not we're leading, partnering, or supporting. So I can review that at this time if you guys would like, or we can do that at another meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, is it? I mean, it's in conjunction to this presentation, right?
Yes.
So I think we can handle that today. If it's not a big deal, we can do that.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's just go through that. But it looks like board member Deuce has his hand up. So let's hear a question from him first, then we can follow up. Sounds good.
I think Councilmember Hudson was before me.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead, council member.
Sure. I actually have a couple of questions, so I can either give them both to you, or I can give you one and then defer and come back around on the other end. But I'll start with the Indian Family Preservation Act, because the African American Family Preservation Act. The reason why for that Freudian slip is because I had some involvement in the passage of the Indian Family Preservation Act and ensuring that it was unanimously passed off the House floor. And as a result, I have some familiarity with the arguments that were made against it, and in particular, the argument that was brought before the Supreme Court for ICWA. And my understanding, I could be wrong, is that ultimately what the Supreme Court decided was that because the basis of the lawsuit, as I understand it, was that it was racially discriminatory to intervene in child custody issues on the basis of race. And the court struck that down, or decided against that, the plaintiff, based upon the fact that the crucial distinction in those cases was not racial, but political, because the tribes are political entities rather than ethnic groups. So my question is, has that been taken into consideration in terms of how this bill is advanced and forwarded, that there might be a challenge against it or an argument against it on the basis of it not being, and I actually would really like to hear from my colleague Cedric Frazier on this. Has any thought been put into whether or not this would be opposed or challenged in court on the basis that it's racially discriminatory, as opposed to that political distinction that uniquely exists amongst the tribes? That's the first question I have.
Rep Hudson, I heard my name, but I just came on.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Perfect time. So I can thank you, Representative Hudson, for that question, and definitely I look forward to dialoguing with you more, for what we pray to be the full bipartisan support of change in this area. I think that we are trying to figure out that issue, right? And part of the one response is that the restrictions around racial preference, as far as federal law, have really focused on racial preference in placement, right? So I mean, the idea of taking, as you call it, some prejudgments about race regarding placement, and the actual language of the present language of the African American Family Preservation Act is not making any claim to, or any sort of requirement regarding racial preference on placement. And it's specifically focused on how to preserve family, or how to preserve the biological bond between parent and child, and the steps we're doing that. And so the language, is a work in progress. I mean, the present status is that it's, you know, we're hoping for a very effective process of revising the language. But that would be my initial response, and that's the response that when I have tried to, you know, build some dialogue around precisely the issue you just raised, that's the response I've gotten from experts in the field as well.
It's fair. I appreciate it. I will defer to the next question and raise my hand again if I need to.
Sounds good. Councilmember Dukes?
Thank you, Chair Doyle. I appreciate the opportunity. I may have missed this, so I apologize, but I didn't see a policy section related to housing. I know that this is something that Representative Abaje has been working on. And so were there any policies that related to housing, number one, and then number two, just in each of the policy areas? I'm just wondering, is it possible if there are bills that we should be following, if we could get the detailed information and the number and section of those bills so that we can follow them? Or is that a part of the spreadsheet that E.D. Sloan, you were talking about?
We are collecting the bill information as we go along, but as we get further along, we can provide that. And in terms of housing, we know that there are some areas, let me just say, that aren't represented in the spreadsheet because some things we don't have complete information on yet. In terms of the presentation doesn't represent everything, but the spreadsheet, we were trying to capture most of the areas. And so when we get to that point today, we'd like for you to take a look, and if the council says, hey, we really need to lead in the housing space, and you all, if that's where you want to be, then we can move that up or put it in there, or however you want to move. So the spreadsheet is kind of designed to say, here's where kind of we've been, and here's where we think we should be based on what we're hearing from community, and what we're hearing from some of the legislators that we may have met with already. So, however, the council can say, hey, you know, here's something that we need to raise up to a higher level. So that's kind of the intent of really just showing maybe the spreadsheet. And Theo, I don't know if you have any comments on the housing pieces.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Representative Dukes. Councilmember Dukes. Oh, you should be representative. But
should be representative.
Yeah, definitely $1 billion investment provision to housing went through in 2023, and we have some breakdown of that in terms of provisions that were related to first generation home ownership, supporting home ownership, provisions related to expanding affordable housing, provisions related to addressing issues of homelessness. So definitely some good work as far as from the community standpoint in that area. The question of the bill numbers, I mean, it's the sort of what's the American phrase? It's the trouble with having riches, right? Or something, because we have so much that passed in 2023 that really some of the work now would be following and tracking and how we build equity into the implementation of some of these budget provisions, and the policy, the actual legislative proposal building for 2024 is a work in progress. And I mean, we have esteemed representatives and with us here, Representative Hudson and Representative Frazier, who can speak to the status of some of the new bill introductions that will be happening in 2024.
The other thing, Councilmember Dukes, is that we did purchase I don't want to say purchase because that means that we have it, but we have leased a software program that whereby you guys can go in. So what we're going to do is once we have identified the categories, we'll identify the bills, and then you will be able to track from just accessing this program. So it's something that we started with last year, and it is pretty effective. So anytime that there is movement on a bill, that information will automatically be moved to that system and will pop up. You can do alerts. So it's a pretty robust system that we will be sharing with you guys. And then once we, like I said, once we have more information on the exact bill numbers, we'll be inputting that information as well.
Thank you so much.
And I think we have some. I think we have some money set aside to get that system going, so we shouldn't have any hiccups on there. But I think
So
it'd be
now-
really, really good, right?
That system is already a go. So yeah. So the money that you're referencing is to revamp the website. So I'm hoping that we're going to be up for this year. I think it's like a 4-year process, but that system is ready to access. We just have to put the bill numbers and put the information in a way that's understandable. So we'll see if we could get that done by next month if all the information is available.
Awesome, awesome, good. So go ahead. You want to continue, Linda?
Yeah, sure. This will be brief because we're gonna still try to stay on time. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay, is everyone seeing an Excel spreadsheet?
Yep.
Yes.
And so, okay, good, thank you. And so, as I mentioned earlier, this is a work in progress. It's fluid. What we're trying to do is make sure that it's very clear as to the spaces that we're going to operate in. If you don't see something on here, we're happy to move things up. Whatever. This is a sheet for us to really just put some things on paper because we know, because we're doing the work every day, so we know which categories and where things fall. But we want to make sure that you guys are on board with where we believe that we should be. Just to reiterate what Theo said, lead, partner, and support. There are some things that we have been leading and driving. For example, the Crown Act. We were a driver with that one. This past year, increased teachers of color was at the top of the list. Police accountability. We added affirmative action because we see that it's a long-term situation, but we see that as a space where we really need to keep an eye on that. Theo met with the University of Minnesota regarding when the court did away with affirmative action in higher ed. So we're going to keep a pulse on that. Jobs, workforce development, that's in a lead role because right now I'm working in the workforce development space. Narita was in that space, but right now I'm heading up the racial equity committee. And so there's going to be some things coming out of that where we could probably help, we could probably drive what's going on there. Theo already mentioned child protection. There's going to probably be some other things that might fall up under strong families and up under child protection, but for right now, it's the African American. Oh, no.
I think Linda froze. Chair Doe, I think you're on mute.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It looks like she's frozen.
She might run back.
Yeah, she will. In the meantime, any thoughts? Any other thoughts from council members? About particularly our priorities and definitely Representative Hudson. Go ahead.
So my second question was less specific, but it was regarding the community groups and the violence interrupters and that kind of emerging sector of public safety response. In a lot of the conversation that I've had with folks on the street and who are working in that space, there seem to be some emerging themes of that's kind of very nascent and sort of undeveloped, and that the current structure where it's just kind of grants being handed out by state agencies, that creates a environment that's kind of like people competing at a trough to get access to public funds, which has a negative impact on the ability to kind of cooperate between groups and to work together. And so I guess the question that I'm asking, it's a very vague kind of top level conceptual question, is there room or space for considering trying to make that whole emerging sector a little bit more professional, for lack of a better term, and structured similar to other services? So like when you think about 911, for instance, you call 911 and you're looking for police, fire, medical. And this kind of seems like a fourth thing, like when you need community intervention, you need mental health services, you need something that doesn't fall into those other three categories. And yet those three categories are all kind of structured. They're structured in terms of jurisdiction, and they have an understanding between them as to what their different roles are, and they work very well together. And that hasn't yet been established with this kind of fourth branch of the 911 system, for lack of a better term. And so I'm wondering if any thought has been put into trying to get it there so that it is something that is where everybody kind of understands what it is and how it interacts with everything else in the first responder space, and trying to make it to where, try to build it up in such a way that it's less competitive and more jurisdictional, so that each area knows who's supposed to respond where when something happens.
Okay, I
Stop
am
in.
back.
Top in for a
So,
second.
but go ahead, Councilmember Frazier, if
Frazier,
you have
yeah.
a comment to that.
Thank you, Linda. Rep Hudson, I think you were probably at the conversation we had with some of the community groups when we visited the Hennepin County Jail, because this item came up. Is that where that came from?
It was not actually. Unfortunately, due to day job obligations, I was not able to attend that meeting, but I've heard it elsewhere.
Yeah, so it is a common theme around the way you put it, with the kind of competition at the trough. The what I've seen and what I've heard and what we got from the folks at the recent meeting was that not only is it that kind of competition at the trough, but it's also it's a challenge to actually get those resources. The way those resources are set up now, and I don't know if most folks know this, it's reimbursement based. All of those resources that come through OJP, so folks that are working for intervention, violence prevention programs, they have to expend the resources first and then apply for the reimbursement. For many of them, the hard part about that is that they don't have those resources on reserve to expend in that way. So for many of them, it's trying to figure out a way, how do we create some sustainability within those programs. That's one way. That's one thing we have to do, because we won't even have this fourth area, as so to speak, is the way you put it, if we can't sustain it. And what we're learning from the community and from people that are engaged, that it is important and it has been helpful and it is working. So we have to figure out a way to make it sustainable. The other piece is that it did come up with some of the groups saying that, hey, we would like to be more collaborative with all of the groups that are working in this area. Now, what I will say is, although the groups may not be as collaborative as we may want them to be, or we think they should be at the currently, what I will say is most of the jurisdictions, and when I say jurisdictions, I'm speaking about the local cities, the local governments, law enforcement, county level, whoever's working, whatever agencies are working with these groups, they are very aware of who the groups are and where they are. They're very aware of how to communicate with them. They're very aware. There is a lot of collaboration going on. That was also that collaborative piece with local jurisdictions was discussed quite thoroughly at the last meeting we had, and that's kind of what I hear in most cases. In fact, when I was working on, as I've been working on this, what I heard from most local governments was that they wanted that piece. They wanted to make sure that there was this communication between those community groups and the work that they're doing, so that they were aware if there was a response from law enforcement and these community groups was there as well. They wanted to know that the community groups are going to be there, so there wouldn't be any confusion about what's going on. There wouldn't be any mishaps or interactions that shouldn't happen. Say law enforcement responded to a situation, you've got community groups there, intervention folks there working, doing what they do, and then law enforcement shows up and not knowing who's who. So there's often that collaboration there. In fact, oftentimes the call goes out from the local jurisdiction to those groups saying, hey, we need you here. We need you on Broadway, or we need you here on Main Street, or we need you here at this event or this activity, because we heard there may be something, and this is where your skills, your expertise, and your community ties and relationships can be useful. But I think that's a work in progress. I think it's a great point that you raise. I think also the organizations have raised those as well. So again, I think it's one, how do we ensure that we can make these organizations sustainable because their work is valuable and it's helping with with the overall public safety system? And then two, how do we ensure that everyone is kind of on the same page and being as collaborative as possible?
Right. Yeah, and you know what? I think Representative Frazier and Hudson, I think this is a topic that I would want us to circle back and talk more about, because the other part of that is basically how folks, community organizations can access certain, like the grants and stuff that are out there for them is a theme that we've been hearing around too. So we'll come back to that conversation. Definitely, I want to make sure we're going to talk more about that and see what kind of strategy we can put in place or suggestions that we can make. But let's continue with Linda. Linda, you want to go ahead and finish?
Yeah, so just a comment, and I apologize. My internet is having issues. I thought I'd be able to take the meeting in the office, but that just didn't happen for obvious reasons. But just in regards to what was just said, we will look into that, and we are a part of that Justice for All committee that was driven by Justin Terrell's group. And it's a collaboration of probably 10 different groups working on, police accountability, public safety, all of that. So we will, though, go back and connect with you two and then do some research to see what space we need to be in terms of this issue. How can we be of some assistance? All right. So basically what I was saying is, so if I get cut off again, I apologize. So we're lead partner support. And so we have identified, based on where we've been, where we see the needs are, and where we see that there might be people already doing some work and there's no need for us to do anything more than support what's being done. So we've done that. And then if you notice, if column H is kind of an ad hoc one, where we're going to look at the accountability and monitoring. So we'll be connecting with various agencies to see how is this money being spent, who's getting it, and just trying to make sure that we can let the community also know here is what's being done with this funding, because that was a big thing that we've heard from community. It's like all this money, but who's getting it, and is it the same people? So we're going to spend some time on that. And then it came out of the strategic plan, the African immigrant relationship. So we will be doing some lead work in that space. Now we do have some places where we're more partnering. And as you look at this, again, some of these things may be partners, some may be under support, but that doesn't mean they're going to stay there. So as we interact in these spaces, it might be, Okay, we know that Representative Agbaje is rental assistance, housing, and some spaces like that. So that could possibly move up. So we want you to look at this as, again, being fluid. And if there are places and spaces that we need to be more in, as opposed to, for example, reconnecting Rondo, we're supporting them if they need a letter or what have you. We'll know, we'll get as much information as we can about their situation, but we might not be driving that, or we might not sit at a table where we're a partner, because we can't do everything. We can't be in all the spaces, but we're trying to be in as many spaces that require attention as possible to try to address as many disparities that we can. But if you see some things on here and your spirit is saying, hey, we need to elevate something, then let us know, and we're happy to do that and see how we can make an impact. So this is just kind of a first, second pass. So that is all I have for that. So if there's something that people know right away that, hey, this is a hot item that we need to address, you know, we can talk about that right now, although I think we're 10 minutes over time.
Yes, I know. A couple of people I know who had, Councilmember Dahir, I want to recognize you, and you had your hand, then Councilmember Jude, so we can move on to the next item. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. I'm since we discussed it at length, I'm gonna kind of keep it short. I just wanted to say that I actually agreed with Representative Hudson. I think one of the biggest things that's fatiguing community members is not knowing who's getting grants for what in their name, and also
Right.
a lot of times in that space of community organizing and, you know, whether it's DEI or other community engagement related pieces where there's grants being given out, sometimes people feel like people are coming from outside their communities, from either relocating from other states or people that are new here that haven't had enough time to kind of establish roots with the community. So I think there should be some accountability there. And it's nice that we have Representative Hudson and Representative Frazier here. I thought it'd be important maybe for them to collaborate with the broader CMAH council members. That way we could kind of figure out some sort of game plan on how we can increase transparency. Like, where's this money going? Like, I mean, it's wonderful that the municipalities that are dealing with these different groups and know who they are and how to contact them, but I feel like the general public deserves to know. Because I see orange shirts all the time in Minneapolis, but I don't know who's with what group. I don't know what the leadership is like. I don't know who any of these people are. And so it's kind of like alarming for a lot of people in the community. They just see people in orange shirts. They hear that there's $3.9 million budgeted for them in the city of Minneapolis. They don't know who these people are and what they're doing. I think it's extremely important to have transparency. I don't even think they suffer from lack of professionalism. I think there's a lack of structure that needs to be addressed, because then we have a recipe for disaster. A lot of like different programs within the state are abused because of structural problems. And I think this is something I don't want to go away. Like, I don't want this to be like, okay, we tried it. It didn't work. And the way we can ensure that is to have transparency and to make those demands. And I see this legislator as a great way to be able to do that.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We want to keep on time here. Councilmember Jude, you want to make a point?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just have just two quick questions. So one is to ED. I didn't see any organizations or any bill tracking. It would be nice to know, so that, you know, those of us who want to do more work, and it would be easy for us to know, you know, who is doing what. And then the second one is, you know, as you identify organizations that focus on equity in all these things, from education to economic development, how to support them, because sometimes organization may not be very resourced to really push as much as they can. But if we identify ways to support them, not in terms of money anyway, but some other collaboration we can muster in the state, I think that would be very helpful, because sometimes it can be overwhelming to these nonprofit organizations, especially if they are very small, if they don't have resources, but they have big goal to make a difference in the community. So these are just the two things I want to.
Yeah.
But I appreciate all the presentation, Mr. Rose as well as ED. So I think you guys are up to something great. Thank you.
Mhm. Can I just make one comment? And thank you,
Sure.
Councilmember Nadi, for both of those. So yes, accountability, we're going to be all over that this year. In fact, when we met with the education department, we were speaking with them about, okay, well, where's the money going? The community wants to know, when are the grants coming out? And so we're trying to ask all of those questions, and the idea and thought is that we will go to the various agencies where we know that they're going to be distributing funds, and we're going to have a set of questions that we're going to ask, and we're going to figure out and work with them to try to make sure that the community is aware of what's going on. And then in terms of funding for the community, I know that DEED has some money that they received as an appropriation this year to do that. And then also we're going to be looking at how do we train our community groups on grant writing? What is the process, so that they can be effective and get in there and get some funding? So those are just some preliminary things that we're doing. Welcome any suggestions on any of this, on that, and then any of this. We are definitely open to having your thoughts, ideas, suggestions, your manual labor if needed. So we appreciate any of your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. You want to stop sharing?
I am.
There you go. Okay, great. No, thank you so much. I think this the presentation great, sets up all of us up on the path. I think that we are moving forward, and these issues, there's so many, and it resonates all over, not just in one area, as we will find out here soon. So definitely we want to circle back and get more information. And Linda, the staff is working hard. And this is just roll into our next item on the agenda, which is our Rochester report. And, and first of all, I just want to thank Linda and her staff. We had this discussion before as a council that we were going to focus our outreach to Greater Minnesota, and we identified 3 cities that we targeted. Fortunately, as it happened, we got a request from Rochester to listen to some issues that they were having down there. So we identified 3 cities, Rochester, Duluth, and St. Cloud, as the 3 cities that we want to reach out to and start our Greater Minnesota effort and engagement with knowing what's happening with people of African heritage and what we can do to kind of help in that regard. So we were able to go down to Rochester, thanks to Linda, again, her staff. All of that was organized through an organization there. Nashona was the key person, and she can speak more about that, Linda. But we went down to Rochester, and fortunately for us, of course, along with us, there were Representative Esther Abaji, who went down to Rochester as well, and 2 of the Representative Kim Hicks and Senator Liz Bolden in that area. They also attended the listening session. Vice Chair Crawford, myself, and Linda, we went down there. And it was a great listening session. And I'm just going to give some overview, and I'm going to ask Linda and Vice Chair Crawford to kind of weigh into just some of their experience down there. One of the things that was striking, though, we told the group basically what CMAH stands for, what we're all about, our mandate, but we were there to listen. That was the idea. We were there to listen to the issues that they're going through, they're having, and then also to be able to find ways, to help either in continuation with them in some type of engagement to make sure the needle there is moving in terms of the actions that are being taken. But there were several things that came out. I just want to talk about a few of them here. And then I'll let Vice Chair Crawford weigh in also. Certain themes came out, and this is not new, right? One important was that there are a lot of conversation we have all the time about the issues, but people are not feeling the impact in terms of how the needle is being moved to address the issues. So they expressed that very solemnly, and also show that people are very concerned. People feel, of course, the theme about health, equity, education, literacy, all of these things were issues that they kind of put forward that they are having down there. Another thing was that we listened and they talked about the fact that we ourselves within the African heritage community, we got work to do. There's this unity, there's tension sometimes, there are perceptions that one group is thinking about the other group as this different, and because of that, it creates some, as far as animosity that goes on between the groups. So it's important to recognize that and probably have a conversation around that and start talking about, how do we approach the issues as one group of people. And that was a theme that came out of there too as well. Of course, they looked at access to information, and we just talked about that here. It's like there are a lot of opportunities in Rochester, right? But the African heritage community, they don't have access to it. Just because sometimes they don't have the kind of information to get to even try. And if they try to do that, they're challenged because they're not in a position, to have access or to have that opportunity. So they struggle. So those are some of the things that came out of that meeting. And we will make sure that you have notes on that. We'll give that out to each council member so you can have that. But again, the work is enormous. The issues all around. Most likely, there are so many marks that are identifiable to different areas, but they are the same. And what we're doing, we want to make sure we just position ourselves to be able to provide the kind of resources or opportunities or engagement with legislators and how to work some of those things out. Maybe just follow up to make sure that it's having impact. Because the thing is this, when we have issues or our community has an issue or so, right, and it's being addressed, for instance, there are a lot of help going to the community, but if the community members are not feeling it, definitely they don't feel like that help is even coming to them. So they struggle with that. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Vice Chair Crawford, you want to add anything there? What was your experience down in Rochester? That's well.
Thank you, Chairman Dole. You covered it quite well. For me, as you mentioned earlier, the themes were the same: jobs, education, housing. And the African American divide, I was thinking of Malcolm X and his speech of who taught you how to hate your nose, the color of your skin, the fullness of your lips, the curly of your hair. And now we pit and do that against each other. And there was an overcry in that space, as in our space, that we need to stop it and move in a different direction. And the other most important thing I took from that is we need to develop as a council, as a community, as Black Americans, a way to help ourselves and stop waiting for other groups to do it. I wish those on the other side of the table could have saw how beautiful that room was. But many different people from many walks of life with talent, with opportunity, and the tools to get things done. But we need to stop asking for permission and start creating our change, because we have the tools. They're there. We got to tap into it. And then let the Johnny comes lately come if they want to. But as long as we keep waiting, they're not going to save us. And I'll pause there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. Linda, you want to add your thoughts?
Yes, first off, thank you, Chair Doe and Vice Chair Doe, for supporting that venture. I think it said a lot, along with Representative Agbaje. And then Representative Frazier, I did mention to them that you ended up having a commitment, but that you would be coming down at some point, and you were interested in having a conversation with them. I concur with everything that you said, that whole African American versus African immigrant, and then the African Americans against African Americans. I'm like, no, people. But I think the other piece, and you may have mentioned this, Chair Doe, is that whole where is the money going? That was very clear to me that they feel, okay, we're at the capital, big city, they're disconnected from us, and all of these billions of dollars are supposed to be given to the community, but who is the community? Who's getting it? And they did mention also, are the same people, same organizations going to receive the funding? And then are those organizations going to continue to give it to the same groups? They also mentioned that the smaller orgs lose out because they don't have the resources. They maybe don't have the political power. They're not in the middle of the mix. And so that was a big thing with them. And but it was a great opportunity for SEMA to come down and say, hey, we're here because we care. We support the entire state. Just great to hear their issues, which are similar to the issues that we face in the Twin Cities, and to let them know, hey, we are here for them, and they really appreciated us coming down. Initially, they did. It was kind of like, okay, Big Brother is down here. Somebody made a call, and now we done rolled down there. To keep it real. But I had to explain to them that they matter and that we support the entire state. And it's not just about the Twin Cities area. It's about the entire state. When they hurt, we hurt. And they appreciate that, and they stayed. So for the entire event, and we couldn't get them out of there. So I think it was a good session with some things to do as in terms of reestablishing those Greater Minnesota calls and some other things, and making sure that they are in the loop, making sure that we're specifically sharing information with them. So we've got our work for Greater Minnesota.
Great. So, any comments from any council member? This was happening. You will get more information. We'll give you some notes on this, and then maybe we can talk more about other strategies as we move along to other cities. And definitely, we want to encourage you, if you have the time, join us. Let's go down there. Let's be in full. So that folks can see that we really do care about the issues and try to address them. With that being said, the next thing on the agenda added was the African Heritage Meeting. What this is basically is just a continuation of conversation we had in our strategic plan to address the issues of African immigrants and African Americans. So we want to right now put a meeting together. So I encourage any council member who's interested in being on that committee. As a matter of fact, when we were down there, I was talking to Representative Agbaje, and she did mention that she and a couple of other legislators had talked about African immigrant and African American issues. So again, we want to make sure we partner with folks who can help us do this. I proposed the last time, not in detail, but just mention the fact that we could look towards maybe next year or so doing an African Heritage Summit and kind of get all of our stakeholders, leaders, young people get involved in some sort of summit where we address some key issues. And that's something we can talk about. So that meeting, we want to put it in place. I let that with Linda, they'll put something in place. If you want to join, be a part of that committee, to be there, to start it out, please don't hesitate to let us know so that we can have you engage with that. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, hearing none, we move on to our next agenda item, new business. NICA contract, we have to make a decision today, so I turn that over to Linda. You're muted. There you go. Oh, did we just lose her?
I think we lost her again.
Yeah, I think we lost Linda. Yeah.
Okay. NICA created, just to let you all know, is the group that actually helped us with the she's back now, so I'm gonna our annual report. You're muted though, Linda.
Okay, I'm going to turn my camera off. And again, I apologize. I had intended on doing this in the office, but my car didn't start. I'm having all kinds of issues today, but I'm here and you have 100% of me. Show you the estimate for the annual report.
Yeah.
Okay, can everyone see? Can you see the
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
so you can see. Okay, can you
Yeah.
still see it? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So NECA Creative is the same agency, marketing agency that has done our annual report for the last couple of years. They have given us another proposal, and basically it's pretty much the same. A 16-page report, and then a separate 2-page handout back and front, which you guys can use as kind of a your talking points when you're connecting with community. So what all is entailed is that they have to do the research. They need to get information from us. They might have to do photography. They come up with a strategic plan. So what is the angle? In past years, one might have been advocacy. One was, I think, empowerment. So they come up with what the overall approach will be, and then they write the report. They put it together. So they are coming with, and I'm just going to go down. So the cost will be $24,890 for the 16-page report. As most of you know, and if you don't, we have to have a report in by January 15th to the legislature. That's per statute. And so they have said that they can do this again. They've been doing a fabulous job. We've gotten rave reviews on our report. And this cost, actually, they did not increase their cost. So this cost is basically what they charged us last year. And for those of you who are new, this is not a lot of money for what they produce. I'm coming out of Target Advertising, and they actually do great work, and they're giving us really a nice price on this. So I would love to entertain any questions and then get approval to move forward with this particular estimate and with NECA Creative.
Yes, any questions, concerns, comments?
I move to support NECA Creative with gratitude. Crawford.
Okay, that was a motion. All right. Is there any other questions before we entertain that motion? Okay, doesn't sound like there was one. So Linda, my question is, so we will be making some suggestions in terms of the content, or it's gonna. I mean, do we need to see that again, or how would that work?
Yes, so we provide them with all of the work that we've been doing throughout the course. They will come to us with a few concepts based on what we provide to them. If you have thoughts, feel free to share those with me, but they'll come back and then we can share we'll share the concepts with the council, and then you guys can say, hey, this is great. Nah, not so much on this one. And then they'll put all together, they'll write it and do different sections. It's pretty much kind of a standard, somewhat standard format in terms of categories. So there's usually a letter from both the chair and the executive director. If there's kind of legislative groupings, and then there's community engagement groupings, there's the calendar, there's a list of members. So there's kind of a traditional way of putting it together, but the information is written from a perspective of whatever we decide the concept will be. So like I said, if it was empowerment, that's a whole different thing than advocacy. And so the content will be the same, but it'll be written from the perspective of whatever concept we decide to select.
Thank you for that detail, Linda. Thank you so much for that. Okay, first, there's a hand up here.
Yeah, this is me, Chair. So I
Go
have
ahead.
a question to ED. So we talked about having a kind of a blurb or one pager to summarize some of the things we do, which we can easily share. So is it
Yes.
going to be part of this, or is it something different?
Yes, so this will be, so it depends. If you're thinking a block of what the future is, we can focus on that, because we can ask them to do whatever we want. Basically, that's what it comes down to. I think the last 2-pager, it was definitely future focused, so we can shape that in that manner. The previous year, not this year, but the previous year, it was more representative of the work that we have done. So we could do a combination of both, but we can provide that to you so that you'll have some talking points as to, okay, here's where we've been, here's kind of where we're going, to spark conversation with your community members. And if you have thoughts on that, Councilmember Nadi, I'd be happy to, like I said, entertain any suggestions from any council member or representative. So.
Yeah, it's just like a page or two that we can carry around. So if we're going for events and people ask you what you do, it becomes so easy and handy to share with them, or even use it as a teleprompter.
Yeah. So we do have some still left from what we've done, what we did earlier in January. So we could share those with you right away, as well as annual reports. And if you want any of the giveaways, so for example, if you're a person who's always out and about, if you want to do tabling, or if you just want to have some things in your car where you run into somebody and you share the document and you say, and here, have a hand sanitizer, have a flash drive, or whatever it is. We have those things available too that the council members are welcome to have as well.
Right.
Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Vice Chair Crawford, I'll yield back to you. Could you revive that motion?
Yes, I motion to move ahead with Rika with gratitude. I think they've done an amazing job for us.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded, Nadi.
All right. Okay. Any questions, concerns, comments, discussion? All right, let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, make it known by saying aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, so it's carried. We can move ahead with NACA with that amount that is proposed, and I'm sure they do a very good job. So I'm really proud that we're able to move along with this again. For any information, suggestions, please don't hesitate to let us know. All right. I do have on the agenda legislative. No, I think we'll move that down to it's a staff report, right? Is there office manager update, Linda?
Let's see if Ash has anything. Let's let them go first, because sometimes I
Okay.
feel, because I'm engaged in their work, I mention it and I want them to have an
Sure.
opportunity to speak about their work.
Oh,
Okay,
before
let's-
we go into my update, can we quickly discuss this December meeting?
Great. Great you raised that. Great you raised that. Okay, so we did talk about the December meeting in our executive session, and usually in December we take a break. We've done that for the past couple of times where we skip a meeting in December, but depending on the severity of what's happening, for instance, making a decision, we could come back together, so to speak. But so far, we don't see any reason why we need to. The most pressing issue that before us, it will be our annual report, which is coming up in January. So by deciding to go with NECA here now, the information that they will provide, we can just pass that out. We don't need to meet to talk about that, so to speak. So I'll put it to the floor that, what are your thoughts? We can skip the December meeting and then reconvene in January. That's something that, if you have any thoughts on, just share with us. Council members, any thoughts?
Yes, I move to not have our December meeting and give councilmen or members the opportunity to be with their family and friends.
I second that.
Second that.
You all don't want to be with me.
But I gotta let you know that there was one suggestion to have a like a get together council type meeting, but again that's something else different. But I just want to put that out there. So any other second to that?
We got a second. I think we just need to.
Oh, you got a second from Councilman
Yes.
Maduz. Okay. So if no discussion, all those in favor, make it known by saying aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Any abstention? All right. So then we'll skip our December meeting. But if there's any pressing issue that we need to probably be led on to, we would just pass that, make sure we pass that information on to you through the month. And then we will reconvene in January. Sounds good. All right. So Ash.
Okay,
Take it away.
perfect. I am also not feeling well, so I will not be on camera. But most of my work over the past month has been focused on the operational support behind the Rochester Community Engagement event, which we heard from everyone went exceedingly well. And of course, thinking about what it would look like to provide that same support, if not more, for future Greater Minnesota community engagement events. I've also been working with the facilities department just to help with scheduling and reserving space, and working with the Minnesota Historical Society, who provides our supplies or get the furniture and supplies needed for Dan the Hill 2024, which Linda can speak a little bit more on. And then I also have been just doing a little bit of tightening up here and there with some of our financial processes. And then lastly, I just wanted to give a brief reminder about per diems. I did send an email today, and I'll continue to send them right before the council meetings. In each email, I always provide a fresh copy of the per diem form for 2024. Please make sure to use that form and not previous ones. If you have any questions about when your payment is coming, whether or not it's been sent over, you can email me directly. If you have any further questions, need to update your address and any other details, you're going to contact the Minnesota Office of Management and Budget, and that phone number is in the email as well. And last but not least, I just wanted to remind everybody that Tawana's family is expanding. We're wishing her well. I did include her registry in the email, but just please circle back to that if you're able, so that we can support her, especially as she is about to go on leave this holiday season. Those are my updates.
Thank you so much. Oh yeah, we'll be losing Councilmember Mullins, but please, let's reach out. It's all for good. Yes. So Theo will go next.
Yeah, I will defer to the legislative priorities presentation. I mean, the bulk of my work in October basically informed that presentation. So any questions related to that I could take.
Great. All right, Linda.
Okay, we have also discussed some of the things that I've been working on, the greater Minnesota strategy, and just being focused on that this year to drive some results in that space. I have been attending some events, and council member Lee's not on here, but she said, "Oh, you've been eating some bonbons." I'm like, eating bonbons and shaking hands. We all know that the work that we do, half of it is really about building relationships. You got to be in the room. You got to know the right people so that you can schedule meetings and drive change. So I attended the Urban League Unity Ball. The Minnesota State Chancellor had an address, and so the Ethnic Council directors we were invited to that. So I went. Great contact, and in fact, he is now going to be meeting with us sometime in December. So we'll have some.
I think we lost Linda.
We lost Linda again. Okay. All right. Any thoughts, council members, since we have some time to buy? Let's see here. Yeah, having issues, but I think it's commendable. Let's if we can take some time to just commend our staff, because we're not fully staffed yet. They're doing the best to make sure that things are moving forward. So it's important to acknowledge that. Theo and Linda and Ash, and we're supposed to be having others coming on board. That they're not there yet, but I'm looking forward eventually again to be full staff so that we can move our work forward. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Linda. We lost you. You're back.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I'm so sorry. I'm turning my camera off though. All right. So I attended a business corridor tour. And actually, Council Member Nadi was there, and we toured his facility where he's housed. But it was put on by Acer, and it was eye-opening to me, the number of Black businesses that are in that Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center. I guess it's called the Brooklands corridor. I was thoroughly impressed with the tour and came away with some thoughts about maybe do we need to have office hours out up there in that space so we can connect with community. So those were just some of the things. Went to the expungement reception at the Capitol, which was again a good networking opportunity. Representative Pinto was there, and I had a chance to chat with him a little bit about the African American Preservation Act, and so again, connecting. Our dear Flockamy decided to leave me and us. So had to offboard her. There were certain things that needed to be done with that. I've been working with Ash on Day on the Hill. We had a date, but we have to move our date. And one of the things too, I wanted to know from the two representatives, Fraser and Hudson, what day will the House sessions be on, and is that morning or afternoon? If you know that already.
What day will the House sessions be on?
Yeah, the floor sessions. If there's a specific day that we should stay away from.
Yeah, we don't know that schedule
Okay,
yet.
so you don't know it yet. Okay. yeah, if you can let me know whenever you get that, that'd be great. So working on down the hill, again, I mentioned that I'm on the Governor's Workforce Development Board. So co-hosting the Racial Equity Committee meeting. And again, just networking at those places. Hoffman was there, Senator Hoffman was there, and had an opportunity to chat with him. Working with Theo on the policy priorities, Ash on the budget. We are now doing our Hay review. It was supposed to be this past Monday, but now they moved it to the first weekend in December. Working on the NECA creative estimate and the branding pieces. So just kind of, there's just a lot of different things in different spaces and just trying to get the work done. So, and again, thank you for everything that you guys do. One other thing too is when Tana will probably come on board and do some work with us, policy, but then also I think that I'll get her engaged in the Day on the Hill, as well as the issue groups. That has got to, we've got to get that really completely rolled out this year. That has got to happen. So she'll be involved in that as well. For those of you who aren't involved, aren't familiar with Wintana, she is a policy person and she worked for, and Ash, you're going to have to remind me of the name of the system, the system, the bill system that we use, but she worked for that company. And so she's phenomenal. She worked a lot with the Restore the Vote, helped drive that. So I'm happy that she's going to be partnering with us. So that's kind of about it.
I see here, Vice Chair Crawford is asking, can we host Fresh Friday events or coffee and conversations events at the Brooklyns?
Yes, great idea. And I'm going to yield to the individuals that live in the Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park area. But it sounds great to me to be able to do something like that. So the other thing is we should partner with our legislators as well. I mean, you guys do town hall meetings. I've been to a few of them when I can, but get in on the front end of that and come out, support, maybe see if we could do a table and get the community engaged.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
I would say, I would say that for the tea or get together in the Brooklyns, I'm there. So if you want us to hang out in one of these areas, we can do that. And if you want to come to the office, we have space, whichever way you want. We are ready to host you anytime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. The only other thing I would like to mention is that I did speak with Dr. Barrage, who is the Chief Equity Officer, and she mentioned to me about the MLK. And so I know we have a couple of people who are working on that. It's going to be expanded this year, and CMAH will definitely be in the mix. So I don't know if you guys, either Councilmember Crawford or Councilmember Nadi, first off, thank you for your continued support of that holiday. I mean, you guys have been on that committee religiously, so I appreciate that. But if you guys want to say maybe a minute about what's going on with that, because we will be highly engaged in that week of events.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's the biggest thing. It's going to be a week-long event this year.
Yeah.
Lots of opportunities to engage both youth and elders. A great time to come and show up and show out.
And just to give you all a little sample, so she's thinking of doing a statewide DEI conference, a youth summit, a day of service, which would be on the same day as a state career fair, having the clergy on that Sunday not come together, but in their churches, they'd have one theme. And then the program would be that Monday actually on MLK Day. And so we'll be highly engaged in that. There will be opportunities for us to display and for us to actually be in the mix, which I'm excited about, because at one point I think the council used to host that years ago. I don't know how it transitioned to going to different groups, but it did before I came on board. But now it's being done by the Governor's Office of Equity, which is really kind of a good place for it. But we'll be engaged, and I love Dr. Barrage, and she is definitely an advocate for us and for all of the ethnic councils. And part of her goal is to ensure that we are lifted up, because we're doing some work, but people don't necessarily know what we do. And of course, with community is never enough. I'm sure the legislators can attest to that. You might be working like a dog, but it's just never enough because the needs are great. So I get it. But we've just got to do a better job of communicating and letting people know, okay, here is what's going on. So that's about it for what I have to say to the group.
Yeah,
All right.
so I will add to that. So for the 1 week service, so we have a day of service on Saturday, that's 13th, not on Monday. And part of it is to connect with organizations of any kind doing anything to support MOK celebration for the week. If they have space for anything to be done on Saturday, we would like to connect with that organization. Or if they are doing anything in that week, we also like to connect with them. And we also like any organization that has food pantry that people can go and receive something. So we're going to put this any organization willing in the website, so that the entire Minnesota public will know. So just to enhance the value of what we do during the MOK celebration. So Linda, I will send a kind of short email, and you can share. So so that anyone who has who knows any organization that that is willing, just let me know. We just want to expand the service, not just only in the capital, but it can be done anywhere in the state.
Oh, that's good.
Great. And if you all need T-shirts or anything like that, we can do that. I know that Councilman Crawford was able to take a few things with him. So even if he's in Duluth, he's got a tablecloth and some items, so he'll be able to do something there. But and then think about, do we want to do something together? Although on that day we might display at the career fair. But we have another tablecloth too. So if someone wanted to do a display somewhere else, we could do that too.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. Any announcements? Do we have any announcements coming up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I do have. So our organization, we are partnering with Center for Urban and Regional Affairs at U of M to do a kind of disparity studies on funding, especially in northwest suburb area of Twin Cities. So referrals will be coming, to you for more on this. But it's something that will be reaching out to the council, because we just want to see how the state funding is being spent and the equity or inequity that comes with that. So something that I think the council can have a great value for the council.
Right. Great, great. Any other announcements? Okay, again, I want to thank all of you, Representative Frazier, Representative Hudson. We really appreciate your presence in the meeting. You have so much to offer, so we appreciate the fact that you're here today. And please, please, don't make it your last time, of course. and let us know, your thoughts on some of the issues that we're attempting to do. We definitely will be very interested in sitting with you and having more dialogue about it. And the rest of the council members, thank you so much. I see that council member, who was there that I did not see before? It's been a while. Council member Gerasima is back. We missed you. It's been a
Yeah.
while. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I traveled.
Great, 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 great. Yep. So thank you all so much, and you have a good rest of the night here.
Chair,
Somebody got
please,
a hand up. Go ahead.
before we go,
Yeah.
Chair, I just remember this Promise Act. Think $100 million. It will be rolling out from January. I know by the time we meet in January, it will be closed, or maybe it has some the initial stage have already closed. So something that maybe Theo, I will connect with you. So we need to take the information to the community. I mean, this is the biggest funding that our community can benefit from, and we just need to, even organizations that support equity work, connect with them to make sure that they get the right information and apply for the funding. So the funding, there's so much funding this time around. So, but if we don't do what we're supposed to do, we might also be missing out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we included that in the presentation. 125 million. The applications will open on January 1st, 2024. Yeah, and I totally agree with you, Council Member. It's a really important opportunity for the community, specifically focused on addressing the impacts of structural racism in our communities.
Yeah, and the key thing to that is, of course, the application process.
Yes.
That if we go through that process, the least people definitely who gets qualified. The money is for us, but how do we access the money and do we get it? That's the most important thing. So anything we can do to let our community know that, Jude, definitely I want to make sure we can do that, even if we have some just off the side, meetings, so to speak, to let people know that it's happening and start putting it in our bulletin so folks can be aware of it. But that's great. The Promise Act. Great, great, great. Okay. If there's nothing else, then the meeting is adjourned. You all have a good rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Stay
Thanks,
well.
everyone. Good seeing you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.